Hi team, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prab, and today we're going to discuss about CISO Master Class Part 2, a skill set. What is skill set is required to become a CISO. There's a lot of videos are already available on YouTube which talk about what is a skill is required, but this video is something special because this video is more about practicality. This video talk about what is a skill is required, why is required, and when is required. No video talk about why required, when required, but this video talk about that. So please watch this video till the last because that give you a great insight those who are planning to make the career in CISO. So my name is Prab and I have a 17 plus year of experience in GRC in security, and for more information do check my LinkedIn profile. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss the future videos on a similar topic. So without wasting a time, let's start with the first part. Thank you. Okay, so before we're going to start with the core part of the video, let's get the basics done because I have seen a lot of people confused with the basics of skills. So what is skill? Skill is an activity that you carry by which you perform the task. Example, I have a skill to teach. So I'm using that particular teaching skill in my profession. Or I have a consulting skill, I'm using the consulting in my business. So skill is something, activity or things which you carry. Now, to get that skill, you do training. Like you attend CISSP, you attend CISA, you attend CISO, by which you learn the skill that required to perform the task. But what is the level of knowledge you have to perform the skill? That is basically we check with the competency. So we used to have a competency score. Okay. And that competency decide what is the task you can able to carry out in the company. So skill, what you carry, for that you do the training that basically improve your competency. And by that you basically perform that task in the organization. So the question is basically what kind of a skills are required? So we need a technical skills, we have a leadership skills, we have a communication skills, we need to have a business acumen, we have a strategic planning skills, crisis management plan, interpersonal skills. So these are the different type of skills we need to have. So we'll discuss each and every skill in detail. So first is basically called as a technical skill. Now when you're talking about technical skill, okay, in technical skill, the first part we have is cybersecurity knowledge. You need to have a deep understanding of cybersecurity, principles, threats, vulnerability. You need to be familiar with all the technical things on a high level. I'm not expecting you to know how RSA you configure, how DH you configure, but you should have a visibility about what is algorithm, what is cryptography. So cybersecurity knowledge from that perspective is very important. Then because when you're developing a effective security strategies, detect, respond, so you should have a visibility about what is the kind of a solutions we are using to detect, what are the type of solutions we have for the respond. So from that perspective, cybersecurity knowledge is a base. Then in some areas you need to have a knowledge of network security, but today this is slightly replaced with cloud security. Okay, when you have on-prem, you have a lot of networks. Now we're talking about network segmentation, we're talking about micro segmentation, we're talking about zero trust. So nowadays CISO should know how zero trust works. So you need to have expertise in securing network infrastructure so that you can able to protect against intrusion and data breach. Another important thing is called as a application security skills. You should know how to secure the application. You should be familiar with SAM, security assessment maturity model. You need to be familiar with OWASP top 10 high level. Not expecting you from a development point of view, you need to have a high level understanding of OWASP. You need to have a very good understanding of SAM, and then the incident response, what is the procedures and all that. So this is more like a technical skills, okay, that you should be familiar with that. That's the most important part. Now we basically moving to the next part, which is basically called as a leadership and management skill. Now I need your attention here. It's a very, very important part. So in the leadership, the first important thing is basically called as this one, which is called as a strategic thinking. Okay, strategic thinking is basically very important. Strategic thinking is basically why it's important, because it provides you the capability to align the security strategy with the organization overall business goals and objectives. And one more important thing when you're talking about a good strategy is basically the one um, which is basically mapped with the business objectives. Okay. Now question is why a strategic thinking is required. Why it's required? Because if you're having that strategy skill, you can ensure your cybersecurity strategy is support the organization overall business objective. It can basically help you with the long-term planning, okay, which is called as a forward-looking security roadmap, which address your current and future threats. You can able to optimize resource better. Okay, I understood why it required, but when to use this? So when you, during a development of long-term security plan and initiatives, this strategy will really play a very important role. So 10 minutes of meditation every day will be very useful, or give time to yourself a day. When you say give time to yourself, mean away from a phone, away from a laptop. Just don't think about the company or think about yourself. That is basically improve your strategic thinkings. My suggestion is that read some strategy thinking books. Okay. Then where you use the strategy thinkings, when you're doing a budgeting, when you're preparing and justifying cybersecurity budget to the executive team and all that, there your strategic thinking will basically work. And when you're creating a security policies and all that, we have to ensure that security policy should be aligned with the business objective, regulatory requirement. There the strategic thinking is basically works. So these are the area we have. Now second part is called as a team management. As a CISO, it's very important for you to have a very good skill on the team management, where you're leading and managing the diverse team of security professionals. You're fostering the collaborative and effective working environment. That is a very important thing, because one of the most important characteristics of a CISO is how you basically build the team. Because one of the role of a CISO is a leader, get the task done. Okay, you are basically responsible to get the task done, because it is not possible for you to involved in all the operational activities and helping and working with others to get implement the solution. You have to get it done. There's a difference. So you need to be a motivator, you need to have a leadership quality, and that is the most important part which is required for team management. Now the question is basically when we require this team management skill. See, when you're building a strong team, okay, when you recruit, when you develop, when you retain the team of skilled security professional, that shows your team management skill. That is where you require this. Then when you're looking for the collaboration, so when you're going for the collaboration part and all that, collaboration with the partners, collaboration with the other business unit, that is basically where it demonstrate your team management skills. Okay, because by collaboration you can able to build the security culture. So you can able to foster a collaborative and cohesive working environment where the team members can effectively work together and address the security challenge. Then performance management. Okay, you have to set the clear expectation, provide the feedback. So this is where you require the team management skill. Now question is basically when we required this. I understood we required, but when we required this. So during a daily operation, when you're having a day-to-day management with security team, when you're assigning the task and responsibilities, during that time this skill will really works. When you're doing a regular team meeting to discuss the ongoing projects, challenges and opportunities, there we basically use this. And when you're doing a professional development where you're mentoring the team members and all that, there you basically get this visibility. Okay, so next important thing is called as a risk management. Risk management is another important thing is basically required, where you can able to identify, assess, prioritize the risk. Now when it's required, why it's required is because company facing lot of threats. A company basically get a lot of risk. So you need to prioritize which risk need to be treated first and which risk need to be treated later, or you want to implement the control. So when you're implementing control, when you're prioritizing a risk, there you need a risk management skill. How to obtain ISO 31000, ISO 27005, FAIR, FAIR, mostly used by CISOs, which is commonly used in the companies. So that is something is required. Now question is when to use this. When you're doing a regular risk assessment and audit, okay, when you're responding to any security incidents, or you assessing the impact and implementing the necessary countermeasure, there we need a risk management skills. Sometime when you're preparing for the conducting audits, okay, compliance, ensures, there we basically require the risk management skill. Now last part is called as a decision management. Very, very important. I can say your CISO leadership quality is depending upon your skill set of decision making. Decision making basically mean making the informed decision. Sometimes what happen, you have to take some formed decision, and sometimes you have to take uninformed decisions on the spot. Okay, that shows your the caliber, that shows your patience and all that. So decision making basically means that you're making an informed decision quickly during a security incidents or for the strategic security planning. The question is when it's required. So when you want to respond to any alerts, okay, when you respond to any kind of alerts and all that, you're responding to any incidents, okay, to make a quick and informed decision during a security incidents, or you want to minimize the damage, they need an immediate support. That shows your decision skills. Okay, when you're making a strategic decisions that shape the organization security posture, that shows your decision skills. And when you're making an informed decision about resource allocation or reusing the resources or security investment, that is why we require decision making skills. Along with that, when we use this in the incident management, we are using during a rapid breach or security breach, we have a critical breach, how you handle that situation, that shows your decision making skills. When you're making a decision about long-term security strategy, policy enforcements, okay, immediate policy effects, mentoring people, that shows your decision making skills. So that's a most important part that is basically required for the functions. Yeah. As a CISO, in last 5 years or 7 years, a lot of customers are basically looking for a CISO to be having a business knowledge, business acumen and all that. Okay. So as a CISO, you need to have a very good understanding of business acumen, and especially in the business acumen you talk about the financial management. Now, when you're talking about the financial management is basically nowadays a demand in which we're talking about budgeting. So we have a budgeting. Okay, we're basically talking about cost management. Okay, we're talking about the financial planning. So, for the security program, so make sure we good appropriate funding and all that. So financial management play a very important role. Now, question is basically why it's required. Okay, why the financial management skill you must know is because when you're developing and managing a security budget, we have to use some financial metrics, cost to ratio, cost to solution, RTO, sorry, it's called ROI, So these metrics are basically required. So because when you're trying to convey the budget to the board and all that, you have to explain things in their language. Okay, ROI, TCO. So this is basically where. So when you doing a budgeting and all that time is required. When you're optimizing the use of financial resources, you want to avoid overspending while ensuring a sufficient investment in a critical area. So that is why we need a financial management skill. Then you need to have a financial justifications. You need to justify security expenditures to the executive team. You need to demonstrate the ROI. Understood? ROI is there. Security initiatives are there. So that is basically part of a financial management. Now, question is basically when to use that. So when we're talking about when to use that, as I said, during an annual budget plan, we use this skill. When you're evaluating a cost benefit with the new security technologies or vendors, there you basically use this financial management skills. Or when you're preparing a report on the financial status on security program to the executive team, or you're preparing a report on the financial status on security strategy. Okay, we bring this solution six months back. This was the ROI. Now this is the ROI. This was a loss. Now this is the loss. So this kind of a justifications, okay, come from that area. So that visibility is basically required. Now, second part is called as a compliance and legal knowledge. See, nowadays what happened as a CISO, you need to be up to date with what is happening in regulatory, because if regulatory penalty happen because of any reason, CISO is the first one who will be victim of that. So like comply with GDPR, DPDP, PIPDA. So as a CISO, you need to be up to date with the relevant laws and regulations. And when is required is when the company is meeting the new regulatory requirement, you should use. That's why you require this knowledge when you're developing and implementing security policy, because policy talk about why we need that. So until unless you don't have a visibility about regulatory compliance, you can't able to implement the policies. And when we identifying and mitigating compliance risk, there we required that. And question is when to use that. So during a preparation of any internal external audits, okay, when you're updating a security policies, And when you're handling the security incidents, you must be familiar with legal regulatory requirement. Let's say example GDPR say that in 72 hours you need to report the breach. India basically have a India regulatory breach requirement is you need to report the breach in 6 hours. So until unless you don't have a visibility of the compliance and legal, you cannot able to handle the situation. And the last part is called as a vendor management. This is something we have seen in last 3 years or 4 years, that as a CISO you should be familiar with that, which is called as a vendor and management. So when we're talking about vendor management, it is all about evaluating and managing a relationship with the security vendor. What kind of a controls we are expecting from the vendor, what kind of a governance you want to control from the governance, so from the vendor. So let's take example, we have a let's take example with reference. So example like this is basically a company called ABC. Okay, so you're basically working as a CISO here. Now your company is planning to onboard the vendor. So we have vendor 1, we have a vendor 2, we have a vendor 3. One of the most important thing between the vendor and customer is a contract. So contract is basically the one which establishes the relation. CISO expecting service as per the contract, vendor is basically providing service as per the contract. But before we onboard them, we assess the vendor. We have some expectation, we have some set of control requirement by which we can able to see the governance of the vendor. And until unless we don't have the visibility, tomorrow we onboard and any security breach happen from the vendor, it is basically a ABC who are accountable for that. So vendor management skill is very important. Why it's required, as I said, to assess and select the security vendors. Okay, do the contract negotiation with the vendors and build the terms according to your condition, which is called favorable terms. Then monitor and manage the vendor performance. That's why we require the vendor management skill. When we use this during a vendor selections, we can use when you're negotiating the SLAs or when you're doing an audit. So that's something more important for us. Now, next is basically called as a communication skill. Very, very important. So effective communication is very important actually, because as a CISO, you cannot explain everything in a technical language. So one thing always remember, as a CISO, if you want to work, you need to be very good with the communication skills. Communication doesn't mean English. Communication is all about how you explaining the security to the board and how you explaining the business to the operation team. So effectively communicating the complex security concept and risk to the non-technical executive board member is a very important part. The question is why it's required. Okay, because it provides the clarity, because you can able to convey complex security concepts and risk in a manner that non-technical executive can understand. You get the buy-in approvals. Okay, you can secure the executive support. You keep the leadership informed about organization security posture, so that visibility you will get. And when you basically use this executive communication, when you're presenting to the board, when you're discussing the alignment of security initiative with business goals, and after significant security incident, you want to explain to the board what happened, the impact and everything. So that is required. Another important skill is basically required is a policy development. As a good CISO, you should be very clear with how to draft and build the security policy. I'm talking about from the company where we have 5 to 10 people and your role is a vCISO. So here you need to show your skill how to create a policy. It should not be technical in nature. It should be so simple, which is easy to understand. Your why it's required is because it provides the clear instructions and guideline. You can meet the regulatory legal requirement. And when to use that, when you're drafting a security policy procedure, you can use the policy development skill. When you're updating a security policy, when you guide the people or when you demonstrate, for compliance and all that, there your policy development skill play a very important role. Now, next part is basically called as a training and awareness. Training and awareness is another important thing in which communication skill play a very important role. The weakest link in the organization is a people. So by conducting a training and awareness session, you can educate employee about the security best practice and they can be work as a last line of defense. Now, why it's required is because to ensure employee understand, follow the security best practices, you can able to foster the security culture. It is a very, very important. You can able to build the security culture or foster the security culture throughout the organization. Okay. And when you onboarding the new employee during that time, you can use this particular skills. When you periodically keeping employees up to date with the security threats, there you use these skills. Or when you reinforce the importance of security and promote the specific initiatives or policy, there you basically communicate that. Another important thing, you need to know how to build the long-term vision. Yeah, so in my next video, I'm planning to discuss about vision and vision, how to create a vision statement, how to create a business vision statement, why vision and mission is very important. So long-term vision is a skill where you develop and maintain the long-term security strategy, which is evolve with the organization need and threat landscape. Now, why it's required is it basically provide the proactive security actually. It basically provide the proactive security. Okay, so you can able to anticipate and prepare for future threats. You can ensure your security strategy is basically evolved with organization needs, and you can develop the sustainable security practice that support the long-term organization goal. Now, question is when to use. So when you're developing and updating a long-term security strategy, there you will update. You will use this particular skills when you're doing a planning and budgeting. Okay, there you use when you're evaluating new technology with the plan of use for next 2-3 years about this forecasting. There you basically use this particular skills. Okay, another important skill is basically you need to know is negotiation, not only with vendor but employees also. So you have to negotiate with the stakeholders to get their approval on the budgets, negotiate with the vendors to be work on your terms and conditions. I must say communication skill, leadership skill, team management skill, and negotiation skill. These are the most important for a CISO to survive in any company. No matter you are a very techie guy and all that, but you're not good with negotiation, executive communication, I'm sorry, you will lose your job. Negotiation with stakeholder and vendor is very important. Now, why it's required? Because you can able to secure the favorable terms, price from the vendors. You can negotiate with the internal stakeholders, okay, for the necessary resources. You can resolve the conflict and you can reach the mutually beneficial agreements. And when to use that? When you're during a negotiation of the contract with security vendor, when you're negotiating a security budget with executive teams, and when you're securing a resource and support the security projects and initiatives. During that time, you can use this negotiation skills. Now in last post-COVID, there is a new skill which company expecting from a CISO to be follow is empathy and emotional intelligence. It means understanding and addressing the concern of employee stakeholders and building a security culture. Very important. If you really want to build a security culture within the company, you must have empathy and emotional intelligence. Why it required? So you can understand and address the concerns and motivation of employees. You can build the trust. You can build the rapport with the team member. You can able to foster the positive and security conscious organization culture. You need to understand one thing. The people who working in the SOC, right, they work 24/7. How to stay hydrated, how to stay updated, how to stay motivated. You need to have that empathy and emotional intelligence during that time. So when you're managing and leading a security team, empathy and emotional intelligence play a very important role. When you're interacting with the employees, stakeholders to address their concerns and motivation, that time the empathy and emotional intelligence required. When you're handling the crisis, that time is basically required. So empathy and you can say intelligence play a very important role. And last is basically called as a stakeholder coordination. Stakeholder coordination means coordinating with the internal external stakeholder during a crisis. So why it's required? Because you need to ensure a coordinated effective response to security incidents we have. You can able to foster the collaboration communication among the different departments, and you can basically streamline the efforts and avoid the duplications. And when we basically use this during a security incidents, when you're coordinating the response during a crisis to ensure relevant parties are informed and in tabletop exercise. So these are the skill sets is basically required to become a CISO. So do let me know, how do you find this video? How do you find this series? Do you find something unique in that from other videos? And shall I make more videos, okay, on the other sections of CISO? Okay, I'm planning to launch 18 modules and it is completely based on the feedback what I receive after these 2 videos. So do share your suggestion in the comment box, because I used to watch those comments which help me to build my content better. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topic. So thank you so much for watching my video. Stay tuned, stay updated.